So, in terms of management of overweight and obesity, why diets don't work? When we talk about the treatment of overweight and obesity, it should be long term and similar to that for any chronic disease. Effective weight loss maintenance requires sustainable lifestyle changes rather than quick fixes promoted by many popular fad diets. Diets are oftentimes viewed as something one attempts temporarily, only to resume prior behaviors once satisfactory results have been achieved. And this is a primary reason why so many people regain lost weight. Instead, healthy, active living with acceptable dietary patterns and behaviors should be emphasized to promote safe weight loss and sustained weight maintenance. Maintenance of a healthy weight requires lifelong changes in behaviors, not short-term and rapid weight loss as seen in the so-called crash diets. So, what are some of the characteristics of a sound weight loss plan? The rate of loss is really important there. 1 or 2 pounds a week is sustainable over time. We can be rest assured that's losing fat mass and it's not lean mass. Remember that 1 or 2 pounds a week, that's great. Also in there, evaluate the need for further changes over time. It's normal to hit a plateau. And if you're on a weight loss program and you've been steadily losing 1 or 2 pounds per week, and then all of a sudden you stop losing weight for several weeks, that's kind of a normal thing. It's called a weight loss plateau. And at that time, you need to reevaluate. Do I need to lose more weight? How am I going to do that? Am I going to increase my physical activity a little bit more? Am I going to change my activity? Or do I need to reduce my calorie intake because now that I've lost some weight, I need fewer calories? Is that something I want to do? Or do I need to do? And next, when we talk about flexibility, you should not socially isolate just because you're following some weight management program. We can also talk in terms of dietary pattern. In terms of intake, you want to meet your nutrient needs, except for your energy needs. Still, try and get those micronutrients in. It's best to get them from food, but if you need some help from fortified foods, that's all right. You shouldn't be relying on expensive prepackaged meals or expensive supplements or meal replacement. And in terms of calorie intake for men, the recommendation is to not go below 1,500 calories per day for men. And for women, the recommendation is not to go below 1,200 calories, just because it's hard to meet your nutrient needs at that low calorie intake. And we can also talk about behavioral change. And it's not just a number on that scale that makes a difference. So, you have to promote change that controls that problem for eating behaviors and also keeping a food diary and setting goals and making sure that the change that you want to make is reasonable and that can be maintained. And we can also look at the positive impact on your overall health. And that should be one of the main characteristics of a weight loss program. Losing extra body weight can really make a difference in terms of blood lipid, including cholesterol and blood sugar control. So keeping track of those things, that's another way you could actually monitor. And have this measured before you start and see how those things are changing. That could be motivating as well. Also, as much as possible, try to incorporate that regular physical activity, making sure you get enough sleep, reducing stress, so again, kind of doing exercise to help with stress reduction and making other healthy changes in lifestyle. And remember that addressing that underlying psychological weight issues, such as depression and stress, can really help with losing weight. There are 3 pillars to sustainable weight loss, and we'll talk about each of those. A successful weight loss and maintenance strategy incorporates 3 interrelated components, which is controlling your energy intake, performing regular physical activity, and engaging in positive lifestyle behaviors. And as much as possible, if you do want to seek advice, get your advice from a registered dietitian and not from a nutritionist, because your registered dietitians, they go through exams and they also have to get certified and they go through exams yearly. And when we also talk about this, without one component of the triad, weight loss and maintenance becomes really highly unlikely. So we can talk about the first component, and which is to control your calorie intake. And one of the parts of the energy balance equation is calories in. So in order to lose body weight over time, we need to restrict calories. So if we need to create a deficit, talking in about take so we have to consider taking in about 500 kilocalories per day than what it takes to maintain your current weight. And that would lead to a pound of weight loss per week approximately. So try and keep a balanced pattern. If you completely cut out a food group, you might be missing out. So a balanced pattern like the Mediterranean diet or your My Plate, where you're getting a variety of food from all the different food groups is a good way to go. Also kind of looking at just decreasing the portions a little bit, making sure that you're still meeting your nutrient needs. And if you're restricting calories, it's harder to meet your nutrient needs. So there are certain instances where it can be beneficial to make sure you get a fortified breakfast cereal because that provides a lot of micronutrients. Or use a multivitamin. It could also prevent that nutrient deficiencies when you're restricting calorie intake. Other things is you should not make any food forbidden because, for example, if you really like sweets and dessert and suddenly, you come up and say, I'm not going to have any desserts for about a week, it's going to make that food a lot more attractive. And a lot of times when people are trying to restrict calories, they tend to really reduce their consumption of food, but and during the day, but then at night they tend to overeat. So kind of making sure that you incorporate that 3 meals and 1 to 2 snacks daily so that you do not overeat later at night. And we can also talk about preparing food at home, making a plan and sticking to it. So making a grocery list and going in, buying your food, doing meal prep, and that can really help with weight management over the long term. Time management also goes into all of this. So you have to make time to plan for and prepare healthy food. And food records, again, are a very helpful behavioral strategy for a person who's trying to control their calorie intake. The second pillar of a sound weight management program is energy out. Regular physical activity, so energy in, energy out, is focusing again on that big two. We won't ignore other factors, but these are the two that we can really have control over. During weight loss, calorie restriction is the most significant part. During weight maintenance, physical activity becomes important because you don't want to regain that lost weight. If we do regular physical activity, we're getting more muscle mass. Strength training is going to help maintain lean mass and keep that basal metabolic rate high. Exercise helps us prevent lots of chronic diseases, so there's lots of benefits here. And the best plan is something that you can stick to. So make it fun, do it with friends, and have some social support in there if you can. Make it something that you can fit into your schedule. If a half hour of physical activity per day is hard for you to fit it in, do several small bouts of activity. Set your watch when you're at work and for 10 minutes go take the stairs. That can really add up over time as well. And it doesn't have to be one huge chunk of time. So when talking about exercise as well, in terms of engaging in physical activity, we can look at a maximum heart rate. And that's something that we want to achieve if you want to lose weight. So take 220 minus your current age, and if you have a smartwatch, you can actually measure your heart rate and see whether you're actually achieving that number. So how much exercise does one need to do? So in order to kind of reduce the risk of chronic disease, we're looking at about 30 minutes daily. In order to maintain weight, it's about 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous, intense workouts on most days of the week, but you also have to make sure that you control your food intake. And to lose weight, we are talking about 60 to 90 minutes of moderate, intense workout on most days. And you're kind of looking into incorporating aerobics training, strength training, and also stretching activities. Another thing we can look at is mindful eating. For many of us, we have to determine what are the emotional and situational triggers for eating. It could either be depression, boredom, anxiety, reward, or that TV reflex, maybe some kinds of uncontrollable foods, or even social situations. So becoming aware of your eating patterns and behavioral triggers will ultimately help you achieve and maintain a healthy weight. Mindful eating refers to being consciously aware of the entire eating process, from food preparation to consumption, including recognizing and respecting everything in between. And intuitive eating encompasses the principles of mindful eating, but also addresses the importance of rejecting that dieting mentality, respecting your body, coping with emotional eating, and nutrition without judgment. It's common for people to cite certain situations or emotions that trigger unhealthy eating patterns. So, kind of identifying those and finding strategies to deal with these patterns are very, very important aspect of healthy weight maintenance. So kind of talking about eating due to stress, and that's very, very common that people tend to overeat because it's just a reaction to that stressful situation. And to relieve stress, for example, for me, sometimes I go to really sweet food or really salty food, but exercise and relaxation techniques can also really help. And finding a new activity to get your mind off food. So for example, if you want to grab a cookie or you want to grab a cake or you want to grab some chips, give yourself 5 minutes and you will likely think about something else and you will forget about the food completely. And this reading these labels is really very important because it helps you choose food with fewer calories. And remember that the percent daily values is based on a 2000 calorie diet. So I want you to answer this question. Which of these frozen desserts is the best choice? But two-thirds of a cup serving for a person on a weight loss diet. And the answers are at the bottom of the slide. So the figure over here illustrates the concept of energy density, showing varying volumes of food with is 250 calories. And note that those with greater water and fiber content, so we can look at those, the carrots, beans, berries, apples, and oatmeal. They and everything that's kind of showed on this right-hand side have lower energy density in and these are the types of food that is usually always associated with weight loss and maintenance. The next thing we can talk about is being underweight. And underweight would be a BMI of less than 18.5 kg per meter squared. Lots of things could lead to a person having a low BMI. Sometimes it's a scarcity of food, your food insecurity or poverty. Some diseases like cancer are highly correlated with something called wasting. Some diseases causes that malabsorption of calories or make you have either very low appetite or burn calories at a higher rate. Exercising a lot, even if they're not intending to burn more calories than they're taking in, could cause low BMI, and young athletes are especially prone to this. An eating disorder is where you eat either restricting calories or purging calories, which would be an issue leading to low BMI. Sometimes people are genetically prone to have lower body mass index. There are some endocrine disorders which are genetic and could be the result of a disease like the thyroid hormone secretion being too high. And if they have a hyperthyroid issue, they burn calories at a higher rate and they have a hard time keeping that weight on. Extreme stress could cause a low BMI, and I'm talking about that metabolic stress. As you are recovering from an illness or injury, you need more energy and more protein to be able to heal. So if you're not getting enough, that could lead to a decrease in BMI. And we also noticed that it could be associated with that, and sometimes it does require that medical intervention. So what are some of the treatments for people who are underweight and how they can actually gain weight in a helpful manner? For weight gain, they have to increase their calorie intake by about 500 calories more in order to then they need to actually maintain their current weight. But they have to do it in a helpful way so that they are adding on lean mass and not taking in excessive calories like saturated fats and added sugar. Also, we want them to focus on energy dense food without a lot of saturated fats and added sugar. And the best way to get energy density into your food without empty calories is with plant sources of fats and proteins, such as your nuts and seeds. So make sure that meals are scheduled at a regular time. And it's probably going to take more than 3 meals a day, probably 5 or 6, because people who are underweight may feel full after eating a smaller amount of food. And one thing to know that the stomach can actually shrink or expand depending on calorie intake. So when somebody is consuming reduced calorie intake over a longer period of time, the stomach may gradually decrease in size. And the same goes if somebody is consistently consuming larger portion sizes and overeating. The stomach can stretch to accommodate that increased volume of food. And so snacking for people who are underweight because they have that smaller stomach capacity, snacking is important to kind of help increase that portion size and also incorporating calorie dense foods and beverages. Dairy foods are a good source of protein, calcium, and vitamin D. So mixing in milk with things that you would normally make with water can really help to boost the calories if they're trying to gain weight, especially to gain lean mass. So for example, if somebody is making soup and kind of adding milk instead of adding water so that to the can of condensed soup. Also use milk for things like hot chocolate instead of water. For people who are underweight, they can also try to add in non-fat dry milk powder to those foods that are mixed in dishes such as your mac and cheese or casserole or a soup where you wouldn't notice the extra calories. And that's going to boost the protein, and it's a very inexpensive way to do that as well. Timing of fluid intake also does matter. People who are underweight have a really hard time because they get full before they get enough calories in. So kind of looking at spacing out the drinking of beverages and drink separate from meals to get the calories in at meals. And finally, cease excessive exercise if it is what is causing a person to be underweight and cut down the time or the intensity. So with that, I will end here.